Tiffany and I are talking about some things that you may have seen on your phone or somewhere that has a group talking about spirituality. And in my opinion, I see them using it as sort of a guise to kind of pull you into, I don't know, something's going on that's a little more nefarious than spirituality and not Christian at all. And so you're coming in on a conversation with Tiffany and I to offer up ways in which we can guard ourselves against that kind of thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Answers Podcast, where we are discussing, as always, solutions to life challenges based on our personal experience. I'm Gwendolyn Flynn. And I'm continuing this conversation, as I referenced earlier, that we are talking about this with Tiffany Lee. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
And Tiffany is a student of spirituality. I'm a novice. I'm nascent at this, and so, but between her studies that she's doing and her own personal experience, and then my personal experience and sort of what I've been exposed to, we're sharing some information that we think might be of benefit to you going forward. So, the fact that there is this group going around talking about spirituality kind of because, there is this notion of spirituality sort of in the air and people going back to that rather than, or coming to that anyway, rather than reliance on I call it organized religion, but it's not that. It's, the traditional religious sort of dogma that's most of us have been raised on, but we're going into the area of spirituality. And for me, it's about having a direct connection to the higher power, to the omnipresent. Some people call it God. I sometimes call it God, but it has a negative connotation for me. So I use universe and other terms to make that reference, but knowing that I believe in a higher power. And so, but using that interest that's out there to talk about some other things that, gets into politics and gets into other stuff. So anyway, we want to talk about how you can protect yourself against that, right? And I know you in your class, you said you came across some writings from, was it Ralph Waldo Emerson?
Yes, that's who we're studying right now. He's one of the influences that Ernest Holmes had with creating Signs of Mind. And, this is like almost 100 years ago, but the things he spoke about are very relevant to today as well. And when we talk about protecting yourself, we mean protecting your mind, because at the moment, life is kind of chaos. And we have the Christian nationalist organization or Christians that are supporting a lot of the horrible acts against humanity right now. So it's a great opportunity for people that want to manipulate the situation to create their own agenda. And that's kind of what we're talking about. We don't want to give too much light to the organization that we're talking about, because we don't believe in what their agenda is. And we're saying, like Gwen, like that, it seems nefarious. So we're not going to give the name. But I'm sure it's only one of many and one of many to come, because when a country is in a state that we're in, where we're literally at almost stage 4 of, um, it's kind of like historians will look at countries of where superpowers right before they are just like done. And we're really at that point, which means that there'll be a takeover from within. And so that's where this organization is popping up. And I'm sure there'll be other organizations popping up. Not because not Christianity, spirituality term is growing so much, and well, what is spirituality? So that organization that you're talking about, they start off saying spirituality and then it goes to Christian. And then they talk about starting a militia to take back the government county by county, you know.
Mhm.
So it's just
Yeah,
it's we're at that stage of um country destruction, basically.
yeah. So like you said, it's always organizations like what we're referring to that will want to take advantage of a situation when we're in a state of flux, of volatility like we are now. There are organizations that are going to pop up that think that they're going to, use that as leverage to advance their agenda, which is not always in the best interest of us as individuals, certainly as a country. So,
Yeah.
so
So the teachings of Emerson in this essay is self-reliance. And that was very controversial when he talked about it. And it still somewhat is, but it's a really good um, model for how to handle times when people are stepping away from organized religion before going into any other type of religion. Self-reliance is realizing that we are all connected to source and using your discernment. Rely more on what you feel about stuff. What do you feel about it in your body? Using your discernment to make decisions other than just listening to a group, someone who you think is, in power or smarter than you or knows more. Because ultimately, in science of mind, we believe that we're all sparks of God. So when you're talking to someone, this is the best. My one of my mentors said it this way. I was nervous about speaking to some clients or something like that in my real estate business. He's like, "Why? You're talking God to God.
mm,
Everyone is God. You're always
yeah,
talking God to God. So really,
yeah,
we're all equal, right? We all
mhm,
have the ability to connect and have the wisdom of the infinite intelligence, the mind.
yes,
And you don't have to go if you can align. And that's why meditation and prayer and being quiet is so important, is because that's when you get to align and know like the truth of things. And this is really, if you think about it, in this chaotic environment where everything's falling apart, it's a good time for people to start becoming more self-reliant, going inward to know the truth, because there's so much out there that is distorted, and it's an opportunity for people that want to jump in and claim power, claim their section of the world or whatever they can during this chaotic breakdown of the world. That what we all need to do is just slow down and become more self-reliant on our higher self. Okay, so we're not talking about our ego self. We're talking about our higher self. We're talking about our
exactly.
God selves. And remember, like, we're all God to God. There is no hierarchy really in the human race. We're one race, we're the human race. We're all equal sparks of God. We all have our gifts, abilities, and missions. We just don't all follow it. And it's if you have been following a religion or belief system that has disappointed you, before you jump into something else, I'm not saying don't, because we all want community.
Mhm.
Check in with yourself. Let's look for truth. Let's look for truth. And the truth is out there. If you look at Kabbalah, you look at Buddhist, you look at um, Gnosticism, you look at any science of mind or religious science, their core is all the same, because that's truth. Everything comes from source.
Yeah. As you were saying, talking, I was remembering that there are some cultures that they're in their greeting to each other. I think is it namaste, which is translated into I see the God in you.
Yeah.
And so you start there. You know,
Hmm.
I see the God in you. And then as we have been talking in this series of conversations that we've had, that yes, we are all each individuals. We all have our talents and gifts and skills that were given to us exclusively. We have we individually have st skills and gifts and talents that's different from the person next to you,
Right.
or your, or even where you come from, the parents that you came through. And so we need to recognize that and to stay connected to the higher power, so that we can be guided by that higher power and not listen to anybody outside of that, and be able to give our gifts, because only we can give what we've been given. Only we're the only ones that have those talents and skills and gifts that,
Exactly.
and so we just have to be in tune to that, what those are, understand what those are, and be able to give it, but stay connected to a higher power, not your ego, because we've talking about that before too, not your ego, and to discern the difference, right?
Ex- Yeah. And discerning the difference of knowing your ego to your soul mission, your higher power, is difficult for people. It is because
It
our ego
is.
is strong. And ego, I mean, we always talk about ego death or like getting rid of the ego, but the ego is for a purpose. The problem is too many people run on their ego as opposed to we should be running on our heart, our soul, and then um using the ego because we need it for this world. You know what I mean? We can't be in this spiritual space 24/7. We are spirit having a human experience. So we're here to have this human experience. And that's where the ego comes into play. But it's not supposed to control our lives because when you are just in the ego and you're detached from source, then you have lack of humanity. And that's also when you go to those people, they know not what they do, is because you don't know what you're doing when you're not connected to source. You're like, you're living on this superficial realm. And so the scary part is people can talk about God, they could talk about Jesus, they could talk about anything. But if they're, like Jesus said, if the fruit doesn't show it, then they're not with me. You know what I mean? You'll know my people by the fruit. You'll know who truly is connected by what they do, what they say, how they treat the number one thing is how they treat everyone,
There you
not
go.
just like, but everyone, humanity and earth and animals, how do you love one another? So the danger in these groups, these militias coming up, militias, how do you say it?
Yeah,
Is
militia.
that
Hmm.
they're going to draw on the fact that, yes, there's a crisis. They're going to claim to be like, we're the way to go. We have the solution to it. We can fix it. And that's when you're going to have to use your discernment and
Hmm.
self-reliance.
Hmm. And when they start talking about people who are not part of them in a negative way,
Mm-hmm.
if they start to denigrate another person, if they're not seeing, as that expression goes, I see the God in you. If they're not seeing that, and if they're starting to say things, and that's why, what you were saying, it's not necessarily what is said, it's how they behave. But
Right.
if they're starting to say things like, putting people down, they're eating your pets and your dogs and your cats. If those are the kinds of things that are coming out of their mouth, then you need to take a step back and listen to the God presence within you for some guidance as to how to proceed.
Right.
But
You know,
don't
it's
take them
scary
at face
times.
value. Don't
Yeah.
take them at face value.
Don't take it at face value. And so the people use fear to control, right? And it is scary times right now. But if they're using fear, not in the acknowledgement of yes, there's things happening that's really scary, but they're using fear to manipulate you into a group of people against humanity, you know, that's like a race or a social level or something like that. That's where you have to use discernment. That's not from God. You know what I mean? God doesn't create fear. Humans
Right.
create fear. You know, the ego creates fear. That's not from God. And that's one way to um, think about how to discern things. The other thing, Emerson says that imitation is suicide.
Mm,
And like envy and jealousy and imitation is suicide because, and it's this is really a beautiful thing because we are all sparks of God, right? We're all God's creation, and there's nothing similar, super similar. I mean, we're basically the same, but there's nothing similar about anyone. We all have our differences. So I think that's important to think when you think about joining an organization and they're like, here's what you need to imitate this person here or be like this person, then you would have to think like, why, if we're all supposed to be like this person, why are we all different? Why would God has made us? Like
right.
God's a creator. Look at the flowers. You know what I mean? Look at anything in the world, all of his creation, he creates very different. And that makes it beautiful.
Mhm.
So why would humans be supposedly supposed to be all the same? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. No, it doesn't. Mhm.
And when he says like suicide, I mean, imitation is suicides because you're literally killing, if you don't live to the fullest of who you're supposed to be, relying on your connection with God, then you're literally killing your actual being. You're putting it aside to imitate and conform to something else that's not you.
Right. You're killing yourself. You're killing your gifts, your talents, your skills. And that's not the intent at all. You have to give those gifts. That's what you're put on earth to do, is to give those gifts that contributes towards the greater good. And if you are denying yourself that, that's the suicide, right?
Right. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
killing. Yeah.
And it's actually disrespectful to you, to the God in you, because you're like, we're shutting it down. You're actually making someone else a God over you, as opposed to respecting the God in you and your creation of you, of your being. Think about it. It's like, I don't, I'm not explaining this. I want to use my kids somehow, but that doesn't make sense. But if I birth children, which I have, if I look at my kids and they decide that they want to be just like the neighbor's kids and they can do everything to be like them and look like them or do whatever, that's like insulting to, you know, our family, to their self. Like I birthed you to be your own person and now you're trying to be someone else. Like it's, and that's what we do. That's what we do to God when we're like denying ourselves and who we are.
Mhm.
And that's a lot in the spiritual community when we say like we're coming out the closet. It's because a lot of us were indoctrinated into a religion, a way to be, to act, when you're married, how to be a wife, how to be a daughter, what to believe, what we believe about God. And none of it is natural and real. None of it is organically who we are. We're just like being someone that we're not supposed to be, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the kids say, you have to do you
Mm-hmm.
have to be you. I don't know if they know that that's what they're saying, but the translation is, yes, you do have to do you,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't be somebody else, because that somebody else is already taken. You can only do you,
You can
right?
only do you. Yeah.
So that's what that translation is for me. And maybe that's something that people who are listening to this can resonate with.
Funny, the kids do say that. Emerson has said it actually too.
Oh,
He
really?
said, yeah. He said, "You do you." He actually said it to someone like I guess a clergy in the church that
Mm,
was saying that he was telling him that he believed in a certain when he was explaining self-reliance, he's like, I believe that, you know, my wisdom comes from within, and I would follow that first. And that person said, well, that sounds like that might be coming from below rather than above. And Emerson said something like, he's like, well, I don't feel that way, but if Satan, or he said Satan or the devil, if I'm the devil's child, and then I'll be the devil's child, because what the only value I have is to be truly who I am. Now that's an extreme statement, but that was beautiful. That's like gives you permission to be who you are. Now God created everybody. Everyone's made of love. So that's not really ever a worry. You know what I mean? Are you the
Mhm.
devil? No, but if you're in the ego, if you're disconnected from source, from God, then you're probably not acting in love. You're going to be acting in selfishness and self-centeredness and stuff like that. That's not acting in love for one another.
Exactly. So that's kind of the litmus test, right?
Yeah,
You're not um acting in love, and embracing other humans and seeing the God in others, then that's kind of a signal to you that you're probably an ego, and
yeah,
you're being guided by this ego, and then this this subconscious, because somehow it gets in your subconscious, and then that sort of takes over.
right.
And that's where you get into trouble. That's when trouble surfaces. When
Well,
yeah, go ahead. When
we believe, like in Science of Mind, and then many other faiths, that that we are part of God. We're God's spark, and God is within and not on the with outside. But if you come from a dogmatic religion where they believe God is just on the outside, and he blesses you or you're cursed by the devil, then it's not taking any self accountability for yourself. You know what I mean? For your life. You're always looking towards the outside of like controlling your life, a God controlling your life, or devil controlling your life. No self accountability. The other problem with that is if you don't see yourself as a God, as that spark of God, then you're not going to see someone else as that either. So imagine right now if everyone realized that they are a spark of God and so is everyone else, and hurting another person is just an insult to yourself and to, the creator.
yes.
And the mentality of someone that doesn't understand who they are, that doesn't know who they are, is someone that wants to find their power by being power over someone else.
Mm,
And
yes, yes, yes.
yeah, and that's what we have going rampant right now, right? And we do have it going rampant right now, but I did have a download earlier this week that in some ways it said that we are almost at ground zero. So at ground zero is when everything turns, everything changes. So
Mm,
and you see all the destruction, you see all the evil, you see all the selfishness, you see everything coming out right now. But you also, probably more than any other time, more humans standing up for other humans.
yes.
And I do want to speak on it because um, we could talk doom and gloom all day, but we can also flip the switch and see, like, wait a minute, but also there's more people showing love than there is the opposite. It's just that those people in power have the power, you know, but power is only what we give them. We could take back that power because we are the masses. At the last March, it was like more than any ever time in history, right?
The
For the
No
no,
King's March you're talking about? Yes. Yes.
and that is people risking their lives because it's getting dangerous to be out there. People risking their lives for other people that they probably never really thought about before. No
Yeah.
one really thought about the farmers, what their life was like. A lot of people believe the lies that, oh, they came here illegally, they're living off the lands. There's so many lies out there, so many lies. but people are waking up to that. And they're like, to the point where people are like, I don't care anymore. We don't treat people like this. They're humans. I see more of that. I see more love for humans coming out than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to you know, piggyback on what you're saying, and that is, and kind of remind us of what we have said in previous conversations, like the more where you turn your attention, the more you pay attention to whatever it is, the more you attract. And so we don't want to put a lot of attention on the negativity that's out there, but we just want to kind of express a cautionary tale and put the attention on the good that's out there too, so we can expand that.
Let's call it, this is kidding me, let's call it active love. So we don't want to
Act.
be passive. We don't want to be passive. Passivity is can be construed as going along with what's happening.
Mhm.
We want to be active, but let's call it active love. Let's put out love. Let's actively spread the love energy out there. And the more you're in that, the more you're not going to be fooled for about with the other stuff popping up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it connects to the self-reliance that we started out talking about, right?
Right.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. Like being more in tune to what's going on in your own body. How are you feeling about doing this? Is that a connection to the higher source, the
Yes.
God consciousness, the Christ consciousness, or is it being more in tune to something that's outside of you?
Right. Or in your head or, fear. Like there's
Right.
definitely to be fearful of, but also there's definitely things to be appreciative of. Like pulling together in the community, um, aligning with people at your consciousness, um, and focusing on that and deciding how can you be actively loving to people in the world, that is going to make a difference. It's like the light will always overcome the darkness. So what we see is a lot of darkness. And in trying to battle the darkness, we sometimes fall into darkness ourselves. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. And we think of love as weak, but really love overcomes. Love is stronger than hate. So,
Hmm.
and light is stronger than darkness. When you're in a dark room, as soon as you turn on the light, it lights up the whole thing. So we have to like stay in that mindset. So when these organizations start, you have to see like they might start off with like saying something that draws you in because yes, like it's scary times. Yes, we want to do something about it. But when listening, does it sound like they're still using fear? Does it sound like they're any different than the people that we're going to be fighting against or they're
Right.
going to be fighting against or going up against? If it sounds like the same, it's not going to be better joining those organizations.
That's for sure. Yes, we want to amplify the positive, the light, get away from the darkness. Um, we want to amplify the love because that prevails ultimately. It in any situation that you may have encountered, if you are using your expression of love, that will overtake any challenges that you are encountering. And it's just always the way. That I don't know whether that's the cause. It is the cause and effect because like what we were saying, the more you focus in on the positive, the more it'll be attracted to you.
Right. And maybe this just came to me. Maybe some people just need to be reminded about what good is,
I
what
think so.
what love is, you know,
Mhm.
because when we're caught up in our sides, um, you can get caught up in not even realize what does my side believe in? Am I
Mm.
really on the right? I do believe that there's a lot of people that are just like still, oh, there's my dog. I'm disturbing him. You mind, Arrow? Yeah. Um, a lot of people that are just believing like I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, I'm a MAGA. And I don't know if they like even know what those terms mean anymore, other than they're just so caught up in the battle of being one or the other. It was okay,
Right.
you know. So what is love and what does love mean? I feel like we should just do a challenge and post something every day. What does love mean?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll ask the question for those of you who are listening to this. What does love mean to you? What does love mean? Let's hear from you.
Yeah.
So, and you can do that, I say this every time, by entering that information into the comments section below this video. Tell us what love means, what love means from your point of view. And I know I try to start my day, and I usually start my day with affirmations, and they are affirming, like life-giving behaviors, that kind of gets me started. Um, and usually it's about gratitude. You can always look to things that you are grateful for, as a way to kind of get you in the mindset of love, I think. I am grateful for waking up in the morning and for taking my, breath, and somehow I'll connect that to love in some way. Expression of love. Well, I think expression of love is expressing gratitude, I think. But anyway,
Mhm.
but let's hear from
One.
you. Yeah, let's hear from you all. Please, you know, think about what love is to you. Place that in the comments section below this video. And while you're there, remember to click on subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes that we post of New Answers podcast, and we've been talking about spirituality. So, any final thoughts that you want to share, Tiffany, before we say goodbye?
No, I think I'm complete.
Yeah, I do too. And I feel good that we were able to have this conversation. And thank you all for joining us. Um, and on behalf of Tiffany Lee, I'm Gwendolyn Flynn. We will see you next time.